Hi, True Crime Grapevine fans. It's me, Patty Lee. Today is Friday the 13th, 2023. I am Patty Lee, your host here on the True Crime Grapevine. So, what is the True Crime Grapevine? If you're new here, hi, welcome. Um, it is a true crime channel where I spend, and I am not kidding you guys, there's a little something on my screen. I spend all day. Um, Looking up everything that's happening in true crime, following who I consider the best mainstream sources on YouTube, and then also looking up, Googling actual local news organizations because they tend to have some more local color. Tonight, and I always, so then I sort of synthesize it for you. So if you don't have hours to watch the whole entire internet, you can just sit down right here with me every night, every weeknight. So I'm going to do some um, videos over the weekend. So you won't see me tomorrow or Sunday night. I'll be back Monday night because that's when the crime, the legal crime stuff especially starts happening. Unless something major happens, I might pop on. I don't know if everybody loves this hour. I've been doing nightcaps, and to me, nightcaps are before bed. And because I am a night owl, I stay up really late. To me, I was thinking if I hit the 11 o'clock on the West Coast, it's like 8 o'clock. Maybe everybody's sort of happy. But I'm East Coast. It is late. Then when I get a late start like today, it's I'd like to be done before midnight. So I got started at 11:30. I don't know if everybody is interested in this late hour. So if anybody has any suggestions about a better hour to have my nightcap weekly, that would be awesome. Please put that in the comments. I would love that. So what did I do today? Um, I always have a drink. I used to drink with every case when I would tape my whole weekly podcast, and I got a little sick by the end of the episode because I'd have like 8 cases. This, you might recognize what this is, and I made this myself. Do you recognize it? It's a mudslide. That's right. I made it with cake flavored vodka, Kahlua. It's like an ounce, an ounce, an ounce. A cup full of white vanilla ice cream. Oh, and my what's the third liquor? Come on. I know you're all saying it at home. It is it's s'mores flavored Bailey's Irish cream. So let's see how I did. Okay. I can't get past the whipped cream. Mm. Mm. It tastes like summer vacation at the pool. Mm. That's pretty fabulous. Let's all admit it. It's an alcoholic milkshake, but it's yummy. So, you can pour yourself a drink. I'm drinking my mudslide. It is Friday the 13th. Hopefully, one of you lucky people out there in the world has hit the lotto, mega millions, and is a billionaire. And wouldn't that be great? Actually, statistically, it's not great. And it would be apt if somebody won it on Friday the 13th, because there's like a very high percentage, maybe in the 90% of people who win large lottery amounts and their lives fall apart. They were happily married, they get divorced, they get depressed, and then they end up losing all the money. A high percentage of people. I know, I'm just a happy person. Womp womp, Debbie Downer. So what are we talking about on Friday 13th? I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 quick case updates. There is no, let's start with the update on the biggest update today was the Richard Allen. So we're going to be talking about Richard Allen. He is the alleged suspect in Delphi, Indiana of the 2017 Abby Williams, Libby German unaliving that happened at a park in Delphi, Indiana. They went to supposedly meet Anthony Schatz, another teenager, and instead they met their deaths. Now I sound like I should write for Dateline, right? We are going to have an update on Lori and Chad. There's some legal wrangling that's happening before their case, some more filings. Larry Milietti's, this was day 3 of his preliminary hearing. There actually was some movement legally on Leilani Simon, Quentin Simon's alleged mother. She is the mother, but she's his alleged unaliver, which happened this past summer, early fall. And we have the Idaho 4 Moscow murder case with, again, there's a gag order on the case. We know that as of yesterday, nothing will happen until June 26th. So you might say, Patty, what is going on? Why is there an update? Well, I'm updating you on the chitter chatter on the interwebs. And there are some crazy things being said about Nancy Grace, which is interesting to me because it's almost ageist, I believe. And then there's a story, and it is chitter chatter, it is unconfirmed, about a possible defense strategy that's coming out. I'll tell you about it. But if it's accurate, I will go down and say that I told everybody, I don't think he's as stupid as what, like, everybody's like, oh, he's stupid. He's stupid. I don't think he's as stupid as everybody thinks, personally. That doesn't mean I don't think there's a high percentage that, yes, he is the suspect. But the story that's coming out, there was a case that took place where a man killed a woman right out front of her house, and he was a stranger, so he had no connection to her, and he killed her there so that there was forensics right outside her house. And of course they blamed her husband, or excuse me, I think it was her partner. But anyways, and then the guy, because he was probably a sociopath or a psychopath, he had a whole story that almost fit. Now, it didn't get him off, but it could have. And this story that I heard about today, that supposedly is coming from Brian's sister, it has some points that could explain things, and I don't really like it. All right. So that's Leilani, the Milietti case, the Vallow Daybell case, the Richard Allen case. Oh, there's an update on the Athena Brownfield case, the 4-year-old who was missing since this Tuesday, excuse me, from Oklahoma, Cyril, Oklahoma, easy for me to say. And of course, the Idaho 4. That's what we're talking about. So let's start with Richard Allen. Why are we starting with Richard Allen? So every time we have a murder, and especially when they don't know right away, right? Probably because it's some really weird, unusual, twisted case, and there's not a clear relationship between the people, like in this week's Anna Walsh, Brian Walsh case, right? There's not a clear connection. It's not a wife and a husband. It's not like this Athena Brownfield, where it is a caretaker who was, who had custody of her at the time, and her, but like a caretaker child situation. Those, even though they can be difficult, or like Leilani Simon and Quentin Simon, we don't like it. There can be some unknown parts where you're like not sure who in the house did it, but it's not a whodunit. Like the Idaho 4, the Delphi case was a real whodunit. These 13, I think one was 12, going to be 13, middle school girls going to meet a middle school boy. Supposedly they were catfish, but they didn't know that at the time, during the day in a public park where their older sister, Libby's oldest sister, dropped them off, said they'd be back, someone will be back here to pick you up at 3, did everything, they were the buddy system during the day. There were other kids walking, because those are some of the witnesses. And then they just disappeared. And then once they couldn't find them, they looked for them everywhere. And then they found them, unfortunately, the next day, unalived. So that's pretty horrific. But they had no idea, like, who did this. And they found them like 1.5 miles from the bridge that was part of the park. They obviously, and then it's also known, besides the Delphi murders, this case was known as the Snapchat murders, because Libby German was, I think it was Libby, it might have been Abby. They were smart enough to get out their camera, and they turned Snapchat on, which goes, you might not know, it is an app where people do social media, but it goes directly out to whoever's following you, and it's supposed to like disappear. But as we know, nothing digital never dies. Hashtag digital never dies. Please remember that. But it was like real time, and she captured this man crossing the bridge towards them. They didn't show it all, but now we know. One of the girls says, "I think he's got a gun," and then the person says, "Girls down the hill." And it looked like a number of like older men. There's been at least 2 other subjects that were looked at that had weird alibis. There's a child corn person, children of the corn, if you know what I mean, to be YouTube friendly, who is in jail. And actually, this has been obviously since 2017, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. And it's almost been 6 years, because it'll be 6 years, I believe, this February. People. They had no idea, all these weird characters. And this kid who was very much into corn, he was like a corn addict, like a little corn addict. He has been sitting in jail for over, I think, 2 years now for his corn addiction. Suddenly he talks this fall. Suddenly there's more action around the river underneath the bridge. And then they remember that some guy came to talk to the FBI saying, yeah, I was in the park, and it never really got entered correctly because he sort of fits the bill for the bridge guy. This is what the FBI said, that it just got lost or misplaced. But it seems weird that this corn kid, and the kid, Keegan not only had a corn problem, he ran the Anthony Shots account. The Anthony Shots account that talked to Libby, that actually talked to Libby, that was the last person she texted with, and like sort of drew them to that bridge. Like that was the person that they were supposed to meet. So how did Keegan get them there, but it wasn't him? Because he has an alibi for that time. So he says something to somebody, and then all of a sudden there's a break, and it's Richard Allen, this pharmacist tech who lives, in the community, who knows the families, kind of creepy to everybody because they're like, we talked to him, who would have known, has no record. It's really strange. Now he has been in custody because, and we have seen all of his stuff was closed down at first. Nobody really talks about it except one lawyer on LawTube, a lawyer from Indianapolis area, who said the actual number that they have associated with his murder felony has like a 2 at the end of it, which indicates he might be a co-conspirator. It's not necessarily murder one, he did it. It's more like you're involved in felony murder. So that's kind of interesting, but we don't know a whole lot because at first, 0. We didn't even know he was arraigned, which seems kind of unconstitutional, and I'm not sure why that happened. And then the judge in charge of everything says, I can't do it, from the area. So Fran Gull, who was like a special judge who had done other very high prominent, like a big explosion thing, she's not afraid of anybody. She took it on. So she's been running it, and we had a couple motions that he was going to be seen, and they were going to discuss what were the outcomes of these motions. So one of them was a change of venue, like the Moscow situation, like the Lori Vallow, Chad Daybell situation. You have these very small rural country communities, and there's a horrific crime where young people are unalived. You're not going to be popular, and there's going to be somebody from the jury pool. So I'm sure you already know, but I'll just tell, if in case you don't, that's okay. When you sign up for your driver's license, you are also put into the pool for your local district to become a juror. And so there's excuses you can use to get out of it, but you have to go to the courthouse on the day. They ask you, it's part of voir dire, where they ask you some questions. Like, I would never be on a jury, not only because I've gone through a PhD program that specialized in critical thinking. They don't want anybody who could be like, come up with some theory and sway a whole jury. They want you to be sort of like a blank slate. Like, be a good person who is impartial, who doesn't know too much about it. Of course, as a true crime person, I could never get on a jury now because I probably would know about it. And I know too much about the system. And now I have a footprint digitally about how I feel about the system. So they want, but regular people who don't know too much about the case, or if they know something, they'd say, well, but I could be, they said like I could be impartial. I'm not, I don't know because I haven't heard the evidence. That's who they want. Um, but if you know the person who was killed, or their family, and like a small enough community, everybody associated with something, and especially when there's multiple deaths involved in a crime, you're gonna know somebody. Or it's so heinous, like the Lori Vallow Chad Daybell crime, where, well, theirs was a librarian in the community, and she worked at the school, so a lot of people would have run into Tammy Daybell. But the children, it was so heinous, even though they hadn't lived there long, and it also got national attention. Anyways, that's how you get a change of venue. A very small area, a very like heinous sounding crime allegedly about the person that would prejudice people just from the get-go. And so they want it to be in the same state. You don't move it out of state ever, but unless it's a federal case. But in a state case, which most are, you just go to a bigger city where there's tons of people, surprisingly, who don't follow true crime at all. I've mentioned the Idaho case to people and they're like, what? And I'm like, the four college kids killed, knifed. No, they're like, oh no, I didn't hear of that. Lori Daybell case. Some people have never heard of that. The Milioti case, really big. Anyways, the Delphi case was really big, still is. It's just been smoldering in the background. It hit big when a couple of times they've had suspects, but now, somebody's been arrested, and the way he was arrested, it was really strange this fall. So everybody's very into this. So the change of venue makes sense. But unlike what Judge Boyce did in the Vallow Daybell case, which was he moved everything to Ada County. We'll get Ada County jurors and the whole system, everybody involved in this case, we're going to try it in Ada County. Instead, Fran Gohl said, look, we'll have the case here in Carroll County. Also, because then the family doesn't have to go traipsing hours away to sit and listen to what happened. They're victims of the crime as well. She said, here's what we're going to do. We'll get jurors from another county. They'll probably go somewhere around like Fort Wayne, Indianapolis, some bigger. Isn't Indiana is where Notre Dame is, right? And I'm blanking on the city. It's right along that's right along 90. Like they'll pick a bigger area like that, probably around Indianapolis, I'm assuming. And then they'll get people who don't really know about the case, but those jurors will be brought, they'll probably ride a bus, and they'll come to Carroll County so that the victims' families don't have to travel, and so that all the people involved in the case are right there. So, Fran Gohl, I like your style. Not that Judge Boyce was bad. Oh my goodness. I can't. It's going to turn into an ASMR of me trying to get the chocolate off the side of my drink. Okay. So the change of venue, that's what happened. Also, that's the scuttlebutt. I'll get to that in a second. She also extended the gag order, which of course media hates that, but there's been so much said about this case, and we know it seems like there's something else going on. We know there's something weird with that whole Keegan Kline child corn addiction, how he was running the site. It seems like there might be some sort of corn ring going on in the little sleepy town of Delphi, Indiana. So if you've been watching the news, you know that's more and more coming out. I mean, it's great that people are getting prosecuted, but it's weird when it's like church leaders and scout leaders and teachers and your pharmacist. I mean, scary. So the gag order was up. She extended it. It is for the attorneys, the families, and witnesses, and everybody involved in the case. The judge Okay, there was a big thing of the defense wanted, um, they said everything they wanted, which is normal that they say, we want all this, we want these statements, we want these pictures, we want everything anybody ever said. And she didn't directly address it, but basically she said the parties are working together nicely already, and they shall continue to do so. Which takes care of the case. Basically, she's saying, look, you're working okay, but you better keep this shit up so I don't have to get involved. Because if I get involved, I like her style. She's very much like, I will let things go, but you handle it. And if you can't, we're going to have a problem, and you don't want a problem with me. And I don't think anybody does. So they're all playing nice right now. There's like 1,000 pages that the prosecution still owes the defense. They said they'd get it. The case is supposed to go March 23rd, and everybody's wondering if it will. I think that's the speedy trial date. I think he did ask and wants a speedy trial. That means within your arrest, 6 months. You want it to have a trial, which is hard if the prosecution isn't ready. So we'll see. There, he is going to be back in court in February to talk about the bail hearing. And you're going to say, Patty, what, a bail hearing? He killed 2 kids. They finally caught him. They're not going to let him out on bail. Well, they argue about that, right? How strong is the case? Does he deserve bail? Is this really him? Did he really do it? And when he was arrested, there was we don't really know that much. There was a gag order immediately. We didn't even know he was arrested. There's a lot going on behind the scenes. So we don't know what's going to happen. So I really am going to withhold judgment. He definitely seems involved, but he told the police, I believe he was the one that he came forward and said, he was one of many who said, yeah, because they said who was in the park through these times. And he came forward and said it was him. They said they lost that interview so that they didn't go back and check when they, were going against Bridge Guy. There was a shot, it was a cycled, it went through the gun and it was ejected, but it was not shot. Piece of ammo from a gun that was, what'd they say? See, they use weird words. And if you look very closely into a lot of forensics, they'll say, well, we can tell within like a lot. That's why we want evidence that's why you want like blood evidence. You want the person to have blood on them or blood in their car. You want them to obviously be there at the time. You want a motive, you don't need a motive, but you need like to line up all these things to convince a jury. You just don't want like there was one little thing. Now it doesn't say they killed him, but there was, and because the problem is the girls weren't shot, as far as we know right now. I mean, it seems like to be sensitive there, it was similar to the Idaho case in how it was described. And these were 2 little girls, and you can imagine, and they were posed. There's something more going on. So we'll see. But it's weird. There was a shotgun shell, this unspent shell between them. So could that, I mean, it didn't have as far as I know, his fingerprints on it. It just matched a gun he used. And unlike the case I talked about in Moab, where like, how do we know that the person who unalived himself was the killer? There were like a lot of things that lined up, including the fact that the ammo at the site was a special kind of ammo that they had receipts that he bought. And it was very specific, odd, unusual ammo that was at the scene. And also he had told his significant other information that nobody else knew, that they had been shot in the tent. So for Richard Allen to be the person, we need more than just, he looks like the guy. He seemed to be in the area. There was somebody who said, everybody who saw him saw somebody who looked just like him. And we know he was in the park. And so they make that intellectual leap. But if you're going to kill somebody, that's not really enough. Hi. Is it Jam? It looks like Jam because I'm old and I'm squinting. Is it Jan? Wait, hold on a second. I'll be able to tell you. It says Jam. How you doing? So I think I also, I've said before, I have an educational psychology background. And the thing about grad school, especially in cognition, we talk about how to use logic and argumentation and not to just hound your point, but also if you really want to be able to um, make your argument stick and convince others, which is basically that's what academic writing is. It's also what law school is. It's also if you want people to buy your product, it's everything. What you need to do is also be able to seek to disconfirm. I'm going to make a video just about that because that is what is lacking in true crime. Seeking to disconfirm. And what that means is you don't just think about how do I confirm what I know to be true or what I think to be true, or like this evidence pointing towards confirming this person. You also, to strengthen that, have to go, but what if, like, where are the weaknesses in my case? What if I'm wrong about point A, point B, point C? How could I be wrong? And am I wrong? And to figure out those weaknesses. And that way, when you're arguing, you're all ready for the other person to point that out. Like, oh, yeah, but um, Richard Allen, yeah, he was there, but who says that it's his gun? And, and then the prosecution will be like, well, we counted how many people have these clothes, how many people using his phone. We know he was in this area. Nobody else dressed like him who had these clothes was in this area. And we know that his gun was, what I mean? That's what they have to do. You can't just say one thing. Oh, we've got him because his ammo was there, especially when it wasn't a shooting. You have to say, his ammo was there. He was there. His car was there. The girls were there. These are all true things. But I mean, there's more to it. That's how you make a case. And in true crime, we do get excited and just go, this creepy person, obviously they did it. And they go with the authority, unfortunately. Well, the cops said they did it. The cops went and arrested. And we know that whole don't just go with authority, right? All right. So we will hear more about the Richard Allen case. And I don't know how involved he is or if he's the only one involved. I mean, I think Keegan Klein has to be involved somehow because he had the name that drew the girls there. So either he sold that to, the pharmacist could have been somehow involved in doing kitty porn because he also did something with like pictures. Maybe he was threatened to do something and be there. Like, you're going to get these kids off this thing and then you can disappear. We don't give a crap what you do, but you're going to be the ones to get them. We don't know. See what I'm saying? If I can make now I'm not using evidence, right? I'm just using logic and thinking of an alternative theory that makes like logical sense. That's a lot what lawyers do. And we want the bad guys, especially corn loving bad guys to hurt small children, to be in jail. We want that. So we don't want to fail to seek to disconfirm because we're going to miss something. And then, like Casey Anthony, all they have to do is go, well, yeah, but could have been the dad. Did you know what he did to her? And then all of a sudden, people are completely distracted from the fact that a 22-year-old who's a known liar, who lies about lying everything from Liar Town, and it's a pathological liar, who even lied about being pregnant, didn't tell anybody until it was too late, and then lied who the father was. I mean, but she's not lying about this abuse that took place in her childhood that nobody else knew about, but suddenly that's who killed her kid. I mean, it doesn't make sense now, especially when I say it like that. But at the time, the jury was sideswiped. Like, wait, what? How did they bring in that? Which I don't know how they got in all that. They could not prove that happened, but suddenly that was a way to get her off. And Jose Baez got her off. Sorry. If you know the history, that's a little joke too. All right. So we want Richard Allen if he is genuinely, and if I say if, please don't act like I'm for criminals. Somebody in a online forum said, I just can't stand all these people who want to get off Brian Koberger. Like, they just love helping criminals. If a person brings up an alternative theory, they are seeking to disconfirm, which actually makes the theory that this person did it stronger. Because if you can go, yes, but that doesn't make sense because, then you've shut down that line of reasoning. But you don't strengthen your argument by unwillingness to consider alternatives. And the Innocence Project, if you're into true crime, I'm sure you know the Innocence Project, which is a group of lawyers, and has even involved DNA that wasn't done appropriately, or at the, like, DNA's like any test, it's not 100% perfect all the time because it's done by humans, and sometimes people don't do things right, sometimes on purpose, sometimes on accident. But we want to catch criminals. We don't want, especially when their lives are on the line, to just be the mob with pitchforks. And that's my channel. So if you want to go the channels where they're going to all pile on to whoever is the, known suspect, the alleged suspect. I mean, I'll tell you, I think Brian Kohlberger, 98%, 99%, I think he did it. I think he's really smart. Let's get to the Brian Kohlberger thing, because it's not really anything new, but what is new about it is scary to me. I was listening to a live by Mel. If you know Icked Mel, I love him. I doubt he watches, but Mel, if you were out there, he is funny, a little bit irreverent. He does like this scary, weird monster voice when he's reading people's comments. He is a little bit, you have to have a sense of humor. He's not going to talk to you like I'm talking to you, like it's a lecture. Hopefully I'm not too lectury. And to that point, next week when I'm doing these lives, I think I have figured out a way to have a TV set behind me that I can control, and you'll see pictures of what I'm talking about. So you won't just see my mug, which I didn't even put on makeup tonight because it's Friday the 13th, people, and we drink. I like the glass, but I see a problem with the sticky chocolate. I know this is the premium content that you pay for. Get it? That's a joke because nobody's paying to watch me. Most times. I am like stinky cheese, people. I am sophisticated, or maybe let's say I'm like escargot. A sophisticated taste you have to get used to. It's, multi-layered. It's something that you develop a taste for. All right. I will tell you though, whatever I tell you will probably, I'm a bit of a know-it-all because I know a lot of it. And if you want to know any of it, just come and ask me. That's a little homage to Bethany Frankel. So I'm kind of a know-it-all, except I'm the know-it-all that knows. I probably don't know a lot of it. But if you watch this channel, I will tell you my main squeed sources, a lot of them are lawyers. And I listen to defense lawyers and prosecution lawyers. So I get the whole thing. And I listen to psychologists, criminal psychologists, and abnormal psychologists like therapists. I listen to I just said lawyers. I'm repetitive. And let's see, lawyers. Who else does it? Oh, all the LE, the retired law enforcement. And there's a lot of them. Some of them are detectives. Some of them are retired just off of force. Some of them are CSI, like actual forensic specialists. Some of them are death investigators. And they all have their niche. And so if you put them all together and you overlay them, that's what I try to do, is watch all those people synthesize, take what we've learned from other cases and how it turned out. And then I try to tell you, this is probably what's going on. Okay, so Brian Kohlberger, why am I worried? On Icked Mel's channel, he showed, and he didn't really make, he didn't make a big deal of it, but to me, it worried me because if you've been watching me talk about Brian Kohlberger, everybody since he's been caught says, oh, he's such a geeky guy. He left the sheath there. He's such an idiot. And I don't know. Could he be a guy? I do think it's his first time, but could he have made that big of a mistake? Or did he do something on purpose? Well, just listen to this. So there was a posting by somebody who did not put her name, but says she's Brian's family. And then in the post talks about, Brian, don't make fun of Brian and my dad. Like, these people are sick who've made memes out of Brian and my dad's face. So he has two sisters. It's one of them. One of his sisters is a therapist. So I think it's the other one. only because I don't think a therapist would go off like that publicly just because it wouldn't be professional. But it could be her. I don't know, right? Schrodinger's cat. If you know that, if a cat's in a box, is it dead or is it alive? Well, while it's in the box, before you open the box, it's both. Think about that. If you can't look in the box, but you know a cat's in there, and somebody says it's dead or it's alive, you don't know. That's Schrodinger's cat. Sort of. It's like a. It would be back in the intellectual days of the, was it 20s, 30s, like a meme, but it's not a meme. But it basically is to teach you that until you know something, both things are true. Two things that are complete opposites are true until you actually can experiment and find out. So was this his sister? I don't know for sure. Did it sound like it could be? Yes, it did. What did she say, Patty? Get to the point. I will try. It is late. That's why I might start these earlier. She said, the post said something about what you people don't know is that Brian still was a drug addict, that he had a drug buddy, that he was meeting his drug buddy who was a university security guard. They were doing cocaine, and he had his knife because they were cutting the cocaine, and the drug guy was using it, I guess. So the drug guy took the knife and the sheath, like it was, the drug, the sheath with the knife was like in the console. The drug buddy supposedly was charging his phone. That's why Brian's phone was dead for those 2 hours, because his buddy, so his phone ran out of juice. His buddy, his drug buddy, who he did drugs with, sounds like a University of Idaho security, because that's why he was there. I don't know if he lived in the neighborhood or was on a shift, because you know how close that apartment and that road was to the university. And the drug buddy and he do cocaine. And he said, according to, this is his sister telling us, right? And Brian got concerned because the dude got out of the car. He was talking about the girl's house and he was going to be a peeper. And Brian was like, fuck this shit. I am leaving. And I don't know if you're all cooked up. Do you go, fuck this shit? I don't like what you're doing. I'm just going to. She said he was teaching him a lesson and he took off. So I guess the guy had his knife and sheath because he took it. And Brian then left. As he was leaving, he's all cooked up. He plugs back in his phone eventually. And then eventually it powers on later. And he drives that little hour route because he's high. He's coked up. He's pissed off. And he gets home. Now, does that explain why he came back the next day? Well, I don't know. Maybe he didn't hear about the crime because nobody heard about it by 9 o'clock. So why would he go back at 9 o'clock the next day if the I have a drug buddy story and he had my knife was true? So seek to disconfirm. So if I'm going to go along with what makes sense about that, why would that help him? Okay, he's got a drug buddy. His drug buddy lives in that neighborhood. Now, all of a sudden, Brian, the known heroin addict who his sister says now does cocaine, made friends with a drug dealer in Moscow. Yeah, and he goes to see him late at night, mostly, because, that's when you get your drugs. Maybe that's why he was getting speeding tickets and shit, because he was coked the fuck up. But he looks nerdy, so the cops don't think anything because he's just a PhD student, but he's ramped up on coke. That's why he gets in trouble. That's why he drives around sometimes in weird routes. That would be very bad for the prosecution. What's good for the prosecution is, so who is this drug dealer? You say he's a security guard at a university. Okay, well, who is he? And Brian would have to say who he was, right? If there's this security guard who works for a university. Is it Idaho University? Does he live near or on King Drive or in those apartments? Let's hope to hell not, because now that would give Brian a reason to be in that neighborhood 12 times before. He wasn't stalking those girls. No, his friend some other dude, sad. His friend was hooked on those girls. He was the one peeking in the windows, not Brian. Now, my psychology brain goes, this sounds like a very good excuse to make something fit from the facts. A, does he really know somebody and was he really getting drugs? And now he's going to, like, was he gaming this all out? I'm going to do drugs near this house. Or maybe he was doing drugs near the house for real. And that's why he was there right before classes started, which is a little weird, as I said before, to already be stalking. So, was he doing drugs with somebody in Moscow and then sees those girls? And he's the peeper, but he's going to tell the story backwards like he's not it. Or maybe, like most liars, smart liars, they fold in reality into their lie. So maybe the first time his security friend, who's his drug dealer, supplier, did uh, go peep on those girls, or maybe went in their party or something. Maybe that's how Brian got hooked on it, if that all fits. Again, allegedly, just my opinion. But that would be very bad for the prosecution if he lived there. Now, why would I even consider this besides it would give Brian a thing? And that's not great. Here's why I would consider it. Do you remember? I think I wrote it down again. They would not. So they arrested him on, like 4:00 in the morning, East Coast time, in Pennsylvania at his parents' house. Took his car. They also immediately served a warrant on his apartment and his office at the University of Washington. Guess what they didn't do? Release the. We don't know anything about that search. That was all sealed, and they said they needed to seal it for 2 months for the protection of. Oh, what was something about the protection of? I wrote it down. The protection of like the public, which that's what bothers me. The protection of the public. So mentioning that it could cause a problem, danger to the public. Now, what would panic everybody is if there's a freaking security guard involved in this shit. Did they find evidence of cocaine use? Did they find there's this other guy? Is that why Brian said, did you arrest anybody else? I thought maybe somebody was driving his car around. That's why it did that weird back and forth, and then finally stopped for a little bit, and then like bat out of hell out of there. But so is there another person involved? And let's hope they're not a security guard. I have a little story to tell you guys about a local university in my area, just over the state line in Toledo, Ohio. There was in the 90s a not security guard, but just a step up from that. He was a police officer for the University of Toledo. He wanted to be and had tried to be a police officer for the city of Toledo and couldn't. He was working, and he did take all the tests to pass being a police officer. He had, unbeknownst to anybody else, there had been shooting into a girls' dorm, and nobody was hurt, but it was freaky as all get out, right? This was, I think that I was about graduating. Maybe it was my last semester, but I was in the area still going, like commuting to school there. Everybody was afraid. Well, then he made a traffic stop, and the girl was 19. Her name was Melissa Ann Herstrom. She got into the vehicle as he asked her to. So on a traffic stop, they should never be asking you to get into the back of do you know what I mean? You say, I need another officer to be here. No, I'm not going to comply. Don't do that. Especially for a university officer, especially when he's by himself. What did he do? He bound her. He handcuffed her. He took her over to a remote part of it was the commuter campus that was like 3 miles away from the main campus. He kept her handcuffed, told her to run in the snow, and shot her 14 times in the back. And then he pulled her clothes apart to maybe, I don't know, see his work and make it look maybe there was SA, whatever was in his sick mind. Oh, and then guess what? He was the first one on the scene when it was called in because, gunshots. Oh, I'm right there. I mean, and that has been a thing before. So when this scenario, and A, we don't know if it's really his sister, it's just a post, and B, we don't know there's any drug buddy, security guard, for the university. But for me personally, it brought up Melissa Ann Herstrom and how freaky it was that, and this guy had no other reason. He never had a reason. He didn't know her. She was just a victim of circumstance. She was a sorority girl, 19 years old, wanted to be a nursing student from Rocky River, Ohio. And that was it. Shot 14, made to run like an animal, bound with handcuffs behind her. And he said, run. And he shot her. Couldn't even look her in the face. What a son of a bitch. He's still in jail. In fact, there was just an article. If you want to Google that shit, he just was up for parole because when he was sentenced, they didn't have parole without life, I guess. Anyways, so now her family, every so often, has to relive this nightmare. I mean, he's cuckoo for coconuts, right? He doesn't even know why he did it. He wanted to be an authority and he wanted to see somebody get shot and die. I mean, and he was right there, inserted himself directly into the thing. So I don't know about security around the campus. I don't know if there's a security guard. What if the security guard set up Brian? What if the security guard was a drug dealer? What if the security guard did like those girls? What if the security guard's the guy who kills people on the 13th? He lives in the area in Washington and Idaho. What if he goes, this guy's what a great patsy. I mean, he's weird. He's talking about, he went to school to study serial killers. Talking to him. Dude, I could set this guy up. Now, probability versus, possibility versus probability. Is it possible? Sure. Especially if I'm writing a screenplay or a book. Is it probable? What's probable is I don't think Brian's an idiot. I think Brian has this. I mean, he maybe does have a drug dealer. I think Brian would very easily throw somebody else under the bus to get out of trouble. And I don't think he's as stupid as, I mean, he's going to have a reason why he just has touch DNA. There better be a bunch of DNA of his in that house. That's what we need to nail him. Because without it, if there really is a security guard, great. Now we've got two. And what's that guy's background? We don't need that. Hopefully this post isn't real. That's all I'm going to say about that. And don't get me about posts. The like Papa Rogers one, because it's Papa Rogers, he has an incel type backgroundy thing. Because he mentioned maybe the guy dropped a gun sheath. Like that is something that even Steve Gonsalves didn't know, that he didn't mention that there was a knife sheath right in the bed. Mentioning something that that's why we didn't want Steve Gonsalves blabbing about, no, they weren't in separate bedrooms. No, they died together. Oh, they died together in Maddie's room. Like that wasn't good because like the Moab case, we want somebody, when they say something to the police go, well, when the killer knew that, has to be them. So we need more than just that. So I do think that post, sorry, I was talking about posts that aren't fully known to be Brian's. The other whole thing, I told you, that other post that was on the site about visual snow and eating weird, the guy said he was going to move out of his house. It was written in 2011 in the spring, and Brian was a sophomore, and he was still, according to his friends, heavy until 1 year later over that summer. And then he started heroin use. And I love Ichabod, but he keeps saying downers make you heavy. And I don't know about all downers, but I know about pot. Not all depressants act the same way. And it depends on what it does to your appetite and your system. And heroin use is notorious for quick weight loss and hostility, agitation. Even though it is a type of depressant, it also acts weird on your, I guess, I looked it all up, on it makes you sick. Basically, it makes you nauseous because it's like taking, it is a derivative of morphine. I don't know if you've ever had heavy drugs. I puke on heavy drugs. I can't even take drugs. And plus, then they make me opposite. I get excitable. So, but it's the number one known thing is weight loss. I mean, they don't want to do anything but get their next fix. And we know, so that I'm not buying. I'm sorry. I don't buy, it could have been him, but this whole visual snow and blah, blah, blah. And a guy saying he was a meatbag and he was disassociative. Do I think Brian felt all those things? Probably. That is how a lot of people feel in their 20s when they're having existential crisis that, who am I? What am I? I feel like I don't belong. I don't fit in. And it sounded like somebody who had mental issues, but I mean, they're like, yes, but this email tracks to this, and he has this rap song. Nobody, not one of his friends. They said he did heroin. They said he was weird. They said he was smart. They said, like, everybody's sort of, he's really polite until he gets a girl alone and he doesn't know what the fuck to do. And then he acts like a weirdo. Like suddenly he's a, 5-year-old and goes, I'm going to tickle you. I'm not tickling you. I mean, it sounds more like on the spectrum to me a little bit, or something. Like he doesn't know how to socialize. That doesn't mean he can't be a killer, by the way. And it doesn't mean if he is on the spectrum, it doesn't make you a killer. Those two things are not associative. But they could correlate. Does that make sense? Not causate, but they could correlate. I don't know. But what I do know is none of those people said an anti-rapped. This guy had a rap, the XTRC. They're like, oh, and this connects to this. I'm like, I don't know. Okay. Probable, possible. Is it possible? Sure. I could be wrong. I mean, maybe as a sophomore, he was saying those. Maybe he did want to move out as a sophomore. Maybe his picture was a skinny guy, even though he wasn't supposedly in time and space continuum supposed to be skinny for another year. I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. I'm dyslexic and it's in math. Maybe I'm just time blindness. I don't think so. I worked it out a couple times, but maybe. So is it possible? Sure. Right? Is it possible? I'm wrong 100%. But is it probable that's him? I don't know. I don't think so. All right. I'm 51 minutes in. So that's what we know about the Brian case. And then some girl came out that said, I'll just out myself. I don't know if you can tell. I was a cheerleader all throughout junior high and high school. And probably I would have been in college, except during tryouts. I had a meniscus break when I popped up to do a backflip. Did not come down. I mean, I came down and crumpled. And I haven't been able to do anything since then because I ruined my left knee. But that's neither here nor there. I'm just telling you, it is weird that some girl goes, oh my God, I was a cheerleader. And I was mean to Brian. He liked me. I mean, okay, girl. I guess I mean, I don't know. I've never known anybody who was a killer who and then I could come out and be like, oh, I liked him. I mean, I would be like, I'm not telling anybody anything. Like she said, this happened in 6th grade and then in high school, they were all mean to him. And I'm like, okay, so you're mean girl plastic. And okay. You're the problem. Is that, I mean, I'm sorry. Are you outing yourself as you created it? I mean, I'm not sure what her point is. I don't get the point that a cheerleader was mean to him. It is weird though that people even care. Like, no offense, you being a cheerleader and then you're 30, 40, 50. Who the cares? It doesn't matter. It's the past. I mean, most of us did it because we couldn't sit still. And if you weren't jumping around, you would get in trouble anyways. I mean, anyways. So that's what we have to say about the Idaho case. He will not be in court until June 26th. They are going to be doing all the investigation. They're going to be getting all the discovery. We probably won't hear anything. There's a gag order. What we will hear is things like, I was a cheerleader and I was mean to him. Okay. All right. What's that say about you? I don't know what it says about, it's just very strange. Anyways, Leilani Simon. I had been telling you that she had a preliminary scheduled and then it disappeared. Where'd it go? Well, there were a bunch of filings and apparently her lawyers, public defenders, which we have learned are not a bad thing to, man, if you don't have money, get a public defender. And if it's a serious case, they're going to give you the best. These people have good lawyers. So Leilani Simon's public defenders, they want DFS. I forget what their acronym. They have like an acronym they say in Georgia, but it's Department of Children Services, Department of Children and Family Services. Her team wanted everything they have on her mother, each of her baby daddies. She wants everybody's, like, what did DFS whatever. What did Departments of Children's Services say about them and child abuse? Because, they're looking, they need to go fishing for somebody who's worse than her. It couldn't have been her, right? I mean, they need to find an alternative suspect, allegedly. Anyways, yeah, they went, I don't even want to say everybody's name. Billy Joe Howell was one of them and herself, but they want the baby daddies. And there were some redacted people. And 100%, if you were watching that case, do you remember the neighbor who said she kept trying to tell Billy Joe, the grandmother, who's about my age. No, sorry, no judgment. The judgment is that Billy Joe had custody of the 2 younger kids, and her daughter just had a baby who was also drug addicted, and she left the drug addict with the babies, even though she was the guardian, and she went 3 states away for a job for weeks, and like nothing was going to happen. But the babysitter, she was doing a bunch of TikToks and then talking to YouTubers, and she was saying, look, I've been babysitting for these people and I'm not perfect. And I swear she said in her history there was a domestic something or something with child abuse, but that was like solved or blah, blah, blah. Dude, 100% the redacted name is her name. They're going to go after her. They're going to go after everybody, right? Because it couldn't be Leilani. Couldn't be the drug addicted mom who just had a baby. I mean, the answer is postpartum depression. Hello. If you're out there, Leilani's public defender, that is the only logical and believable thing, is she lost her mind because of hormones and the drugs she was getting off them, or she couldn't stay off them, and she also had hormone imbalance because she just had a baby. That's the answer. Andrea Yates. Sorry, just going to give you a free legal advice from a non-lawyer. But don't go with like the neighbor lady came in and snatched him and killed him or something, because there's a lot of evidence, and I would believe, and I think a lot of jurors would believe, that no, she was the one who put him in the trash, and that's where they found him, at the trash thing. And I think there was a videotape of her going to where the dumpster. I mean, come on. And then she did weird lies. No, I don't know if he went in the pool. We don't know what happened. Quite frankly, I'm just talking on my ass. But what I do know is her going after all those people, whatever. So that was written on the 10th. So I'm thinking maybe that she either waived the preliminary hearing and just said, yeah, we're going to trial. Or before the preliminary hearing, she's saying, look, we're going to take care of, I need more evidence. I need more discovery for my preliminary. So what we know right now is her next court date will be January 25th. Okay. That is not this next week, but the week after. In the meantime, DCF, Department of Children and Family Services, whatever the acronym, I hate acronyms. That's a dyslexic downfall. I just have to say it a lot and I'll get used to it. They replied back in a filing on today, I believe, and said, no, they had all the law talking numbers. According to Georgia court, blah, 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 number, whatever, this information from our department is considered like confidential, and there's no reason for them to have it, and blah, blah, blah. So what the court, it says, what I wrote was, it looks like the filings. So what Leilani's defense attorneys wanted was for them to see all of this information in camera. And in camera just means like they could read it and they wouldn't have like the actual file on their hands, but they could see it and take notes. And DFS, Department of Family and Children's Services, says, no, it's confidential. They proposed, Judge, you can read it in camera and decide if it's relevant or not. That sounds logical and reasonable and respectful for all the parties involved. And it cuts off any sort of fishing expedition by Leilani and her attorneys to be like, so who else did what? And do we have alternative theories from this? It's not how that goes. You don't get to do that. So we'll see what happens next with that. All right. There's a quick update on Athena Brownfield, the 4-year-old who was missing or is missing from Cyril, Oklahoma. The Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation, so it's like the FBI for the state, came out and said, so there's been 2 arrests now. Yesterday, the mother was arrested for, or excuse me, she's not the mother. They call her the caretaker. They keep saying this started because the post officer, post person, saw a little girl, and it was her 5-year-old sister outside at 2 p.m. their time. So like almost 5 our time in the East Coast. But oh wait, Georgia. No, I'm sorry, this is Oklahoma. So 2 p.m. there, found this 5-year-old. They can't find her sister. There's 2 people that are the caretakers of the girls. I don't know if they're foster parents or if the parents or biological mom or dad or whoever gave them to caretake, or if they were babysitting for the weekend, or it wasn't a weekend, but I don't know it. I don't know their relationship. And every time a reporter asked the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation spokesperson, she didn't want to say. So there's something going on with how these people were taking care of these kids. For all I know, they grabbed them. Or maybe it's part of a porn. Sorry, I meant to say corn. I didn't say the other word with it, so hopefully. Sorry, YouTube. I haven't even had too much of my drink because it's too thick. I think I remember this about you have to like create a hole because oh, look at that. It's pretty too. I'm proud of myself for making this. Oh, it's so yummy. Now we've turned into an ASMR channel for ice cream drinks. All right, back to serious stuff. So the caretaker, who is the wife, her name is Alyssa Adams. She is 31. She was taken into custody on 2 counts of child neglect. That was on Thursday. Today, Mr. Adams, her husband, who is 36, Ivan, spelled Ivon, was taken into custody in Arizona. And guess what? For murder 1. Yeah. Murder. In Arizona. So obviously was making a run for it. Thank God they caught him. There's got to be a crazy story behind this. And if it's for murder, that means they probably found some biological evidence indicating that something happened. Or they haven't said they found her. It's a sad, horrible story. And I'll tell you more about that next time. That sounds horrible, right? Sorry about that. That's just awful. Okay, speaking of people killing children, we had Leilani Simon. We have now the Adams family taking care of Athena Broomfield, not related, and her sister, who was a year older. Now we're to Lori and Chad Daybell, are fantastic prophets from the great state of, let's say, well, they started out, Chad's always been from Rexburg, Idaho, but Lori, California, Oklahoma, Louisiana, Arizona, Hawaii. She's a girl who gets around. Why? Ichamel shows up. Ichamel's live. He's got Brian Kohlberger's. Look at, now I'm just reading you guys. Updates on other channels. What? I'm a sharer. I'm a giver. Anyways, so Chad and Lori, doomsday couple. I don't think she was right to begin with all the way. I mean, and not crazy. I just mean, was into the mysticism of Mormon religion and felt like she was very special and different, like most teenagers feel, and she seems to never have grown out of that. Very special and different. So special and different that, maybe she was, I'm a prophet here on earth. Even though the Mormon religion does believe in living prophets. So if you hear people say, yes, they were Mormons, but this has nothing to do with Mormon religion. Well, there's a lot of cults that come out of Mormonism, not because Mormonism preaches these things, but that the main factor in it is that they believe in a living God. And I'm the living God. See how that goes? So, I mean, and it happens. There's Christianity. A lot of people in mental hospitals are Jesus. There's a book written about, I think it's called The Three Jesuses. And the psychologist thought it would be interesting to have them interact to see if that broke them out of their psychosis, because how could there be 3 of them, right? But guess what? They found a way to make it work. No, I'm Jesus, if you can imagine. So I can't even, it's, if you know, you know, hashtag if you know, you know. So Lori and Chad got together and people around them started dying. People died around Lori a little bit before, but we can't prove that. So it's all just alleged. But if you watch Annie Cushing of Annie Lennox and the Murderous Heart channel, she goes into such detail. Man, she's got evidence and she's got logic and she will explain. I love, it's very involved though. You've got to have hours on your hands and really care. But she's convinced me that there was more before Lori ever met Chad. But since she met Chad, let's see. First, her husband died, then his wife died, then her kids died. Right? Is that right? Charles Vallow, Tammy Daybell, Tylee Ryan, JJ Ryan. I mean, JJ Vallow, sorry. Yes. And thank goodness that JJ's grandparents, also weird, these stories about caretakers or people who adopted children. Lori and Charles adopted JJ. Charles actually was biologically related to him because he was, I believe, his sister's child. So the grandparents, his sister, it's his niece, had JJ. So he was really biologically JJ's uncle, but he adopted him as his father. And the actual grandparents are Charles Barrow's sister. Does that make sense? Anyway, they wanted to know where JJ went. And as Lori was getting involved with this Chad Vallow and this cult that was called the Church of the Firstborn, was what they called the church. And they had a podcast, because everybody does, called, what was their podcast? Something the people. They were gathering people. They were gatherers. And they believed in magic and they believe in spell casting, like Larry Miliete that we'll talk about next. Anyways, so what's going on with Chad and Lori? Yeah, they kill people. There's new biological evidence that the state says they have. They want to test it, and they formally put into writing that same thing they did with the other biological evidence. If there's enough, that first of all, they have to see if it's tested. If it can be tested, if there's enough for 2 testings, they'll give one to the defense and one so that they can also, use their own experts to test it. If there's only enough for 1 test, a consumptive test, then they will make arrangements for everybody to watch it that is amenable to all attorneys and defendants involved, the accused. So that's the facts of the case that have changed. Now, the other part was that I told you that there were some that Lori had, her attorneys had filed alibis saying, look, she wasn't there. The kids died in Alex's apartments next door. She has an alibi. She was with Melanie Gibb and David Warwick, when they were doing the podcast, Preparing the People podcast, in Rexburg, Idaho, and that she wasn't there when JJ and Tylee were killed. She was either with those two, Melanie and David Warwick, doing the podcast, or which I love, in an alibi. Don't you love an or if you don't like that? Or she was with Chad Daybell, her co-conspirator, which that's not really your best alibi, honey. You think your co-conspirator is your alibi? Doesn't work like that. But okay, Lori, she'll just hair flip and, but I'm cute. I don't know, man. Casey Anthony got off. I don't know if Lori will. Casey Anthony was in Florida, and in Florida, anything can happen. In Idaho, they're gonna get you. I think Idaho's a lot less forgiving about anything. I'll tell you that. That's my personal opinion. Just my opinion. So there is an outstanding plea. There is no outstanding plea. So the other thing besides the alibi thing is she wanted to talk to Chad. They wanted to, they filed to have a meeting, like a mediation meeting, a strategy meeting, where Lori and Chad could talk. Well, here's the thing. You're not allowed to get your story straight without, like, I mean, with in a mediation, if it really was a mediation, like, can we do a plea deal? I'm going to say this, you're going to say that. The lawyers would talk, the people would sit there, and if they were mediating, you couldn't use anything they say against them, but then the prosecution would also be there because they would all be making a deal. It sounds like, according to what the state has filed, there is no deal on the table. Who knows if this is mediation? They cannot just meet. They can't. It puts their lawyers in a bad position because if they say anything together and make any plans, now those lawyers are witnesses and they can't be their lawyers. And that pierces the lawyer client privilege. In that case, you don't want to do that. And so Scott Reich on his Crime Talk show, he goes, he's a defense attorney. And he's like, oh, you just have an investigator in the room. That's what the police do. And it'll be fine. And I'm like, man, these people are problems already. And I think Lori is crazy like a fox. And I know John Pryor I know. In my opinion, allegedly, John Pryor keeps asking for extensions because that is the only way, because Lori wants a speedy trial. And so if Chad wants to put his off, like, even if the court won't give them, sever their cases, because if they don't have cases together, they can just make a whole case on it's this other person's fault. And they can have two different, like, and they can just, it's harder when they're together and all the, if all the evidence is being presented against each of them together, it's not going to look right. I mean, it's a lot easier to show. I mean, and it's the exact same case. She even said her alibi was him or him. So, and the kids were found buried in his yard after his wife died. They went away to Hawaii, not telling anybody where the kids are. Like, they kind of knew where they were. And they can't just blame Lori's. I don't even know if you guys can hear me. Sorry. Oh, hi, Kate W. Posey. Hey, Wozy. I don't know when you said that, Kate. I just saw it. I hope you can hear me all right. I didn't really check my microphone because I don't have technological abilities. Another reason why I would never attempt to do a major crime, I know I would get caught because 1, technology is amazing. 2, I'm not good at it. And 3, I believe whatever runs this universe, like, you'll not get away with doing something bad to people. You just won't. You'll get caught somehow. That's just my personal opinion. All right. So what do we think Judge Boyce is going to do? Do you think he's going to be like, yeah, you guys should chat by yourselves, get your story straight? He's not going to say that. That's against the rules. Once you, like, no, you're known to have committed a crime together. That's why when they arrest you and they freaking separate you, it's because you say this and you say this, and the cops will be like, and we'll see what matches up and what doesn't. That's what you want. All right, that is the Daybell case. How am I doing? I talked about the Daybell case. I talked about Leilani Simon. We'll see here back at the end of January. Talked about Richard Allen. Talked about Athena Broomfield. I talked about that. If we only have the Milioti case, let's end on the Milioti case. Preliminary hearing. It's really good. Kate, I will make you one of these. Mudslide. 2 thumbs up. 2 very sticky thumbs up. All right. We're going to end with our Larry Milioti case. He is accused of unaliving his wife, May Milioti, who was getting ready to divorce him. And the past 2 days, we've mainly had his sister on the stand. Today we had a gun expert, but we also had her younger brother on the stand. And it was the younger brother who had been a little more friendly with Larry, and he had gone over there. The family asked him to go over. He was the one that went and checked and saw that, like, oh, the like, actual things, appliances were pulled like 2 feet off the wall so it can be cleaned behind it in the kitchen. And he went to talk to his sister, who Larry sort of intimated was maybe in the bedroom because the master bedroom door was locked. and he wasn't in there. He also testified to the fact that once Larry smacked the wall against his head, and he goes, "Do you think that? Do you know that can be considered domestic violence? Like basically, I didn't touch you, but can you believe that?" The brother testified that yes, his sister came to live with him in May of 2020 and intimated, well, actually didn't intimate, actually said she didn't want to be married anymore, that he was basically keeping tabs on her. The sister had said the day before, like, she made $150,000 a year and she had no money in her name. And the defense attorney today was like, "Oh, you mean she didn't carry U.S. currency?" No, bitch. Her husband, even though she made more money, kept her under lock and key and didn't let her have any US currency because he was controlling her. I mean, they'd been childhood sweethearts, it sounds like, according to everybody. I'm just saying allegedly. The sister and the brother have been very good witnesses. I think because they're telling, here's the thing, when you're telling the truth, you're going to be a good witness. This is the preliminary hearing. And if you remember, preliminary hearing is the hearing to see if there is enough probable cause to go to trial. So it's kind of confusing because when you first get arrested, you go before the court and they tell you this is what you're accused of. The next time you go to court, you plea. You actually say, I'm guilty, I'm not guilty. They figure you've talked to a lawyer. At this point, what are you going to say? And then if you want to go to trial, then there's a grand jury that indicts you, which is just prosecution, or there's a preliminary hearing. And even though there's a probable cause affidavit when you're arrested, which means you probably caused this thing, they have a probable cause hearing or a preliminary hearing to see, so is that probable cause? That was just the probable cause affidavit is just one side. That's just what the police say. Now we're going to have a hearing. And we'll see what a judge thinks. A judge decides. This is no jury. This is just to see if the case is good enough to probably that person caused it, and then it's bound over to a district court, a court for murder, for felonies, a felony court. The person that hears probable cause usually isn't the person. It's not the judge that's going to hear the actual felony in these bigger things. So Larry Miliete is in the San Diego system. They lived in it's either Hula Vista or Chula Vista, but anyways, it is similar to the other missing mom case that we've been talking about this week, the Walsh case, in that there's lots of evidence that something happened. The person's phone isn't, the person has disappeared. They had known problems. In the Walsh case, we have some biological evidence. In this case, we just know she's missing. And we haven't heard any biological evidence, but they were having huge problems. They were gunshots or big bangs at night. The FBI couldn't say they're gunshots, and then the next day he disappeared without his phone. So Larry's, one up on the other people for not taking his phone with him. So I'm thinking it's going to be bound over. So, but we still have more trial that will be, they won't do it Saturday and Sunday. So on Monday when I come back, hopefully I'll have a TV set somewhere behind me, like around here, or if I'm sitting somewhere with a TV set, so I can sort of show you what Mr. Larry looks like, and it'll be a little more visually interesting. And yeah, that's it, people. So I hope you have a great weekend. Stay safe. What can we learn from all this? We want to lock our doors. If we live with groups of people, we want to lock our bedroom doors. We don't want to not trust anybody, but we want to not trust anybody. We want to, if anything happens, document. Tell everybody you know if you're a little bit afraid. They can be good witnesses for you later. And we'll see what else we will see. I mean, drugs are bad. I get why people use them. We're all addicted to something. I buy way too many books and knit too much, and we all have our problems, right? So I'm not going to sit on a high horse and pretend that I don't have problems. We all have our problems. But in all these cases we've been talking about, there's some through lines in them. And one of them is drug use. Try to stay away from cocaine, please. If that's what Brian, that was the thing. They said Brian used, the sister. Did I say that? that was a drug. She said his drug buddy, that he had used cocaine. I think I said that. I don't know. It's just weird. Heroin to cocaine. It's a big jump. All right. So bye. I will see you on Monday, and I might have an upload on Sunday. But if not, I'll see you on Monday. Bye.